is what they call the farmer's model. Farmer like this. Farmer's model. So this is model number 3. Model number 3. Model number 3. So farmer's model, we are reading there together, ladies and gentlemen. What are they saying there? Farmer's model, what are they telling us there? Farmer's model, what are they telling us there? So we are reading this together. So we are told something nice there. The farmer model of predicting corporate failure is a financial distress prediction. Remember, when you're financially distressed is when really you have got a lot of financial issues. So is a financial distress prediction model that was developed by David A. Farmer in the early 1960s. This model is one of the early attempts to use quantitative financial ratios, and statistical analysis to assess the likelihood of a company experiencing financial distress or bankruptcy. The Farmer model incorporates various financial ratios and other financial indicators to evaluate a company's financial health. Some of the key financial ratios and indicators used in the Farmer model may include, number 1, we have liquidity ratios. Number 2, we'll have profitability ratios there. Number 3, we will have the leverage ratios, like the debt to equity ratio, leverage ratios. Then we have the activity ratios, like the efficiency ratios, stock turnover ratios. We have the market-based ratios. We have cash flow indicators, so cash flow ratios. We have number 7, growth trends, that is analysis of revenues. How are revenues growing? How is our cost of sales, for example, behaving? The trend analysis, ratios capturing trend analysis. And then we have number 8, lastly, what we call industry benchmarks. The Farmer model typically involves multivariate statistical analysis, such as logistic regression, to combine these financial ratios and the indicators into a predictive model. By analyzing historical financial data and the relationships between these variables, the model assigns a probability or a score to the likelihood of corporate failure or financial distress. So, ladies and gentlemen, I would want you to appreciate one thing here, that this Farmer model has not been tested at all. The Farmer model has never been tested at all. The Farmer model has never been tested at all. And should they test it, what you're supposed to know is that should these guys happen to test it, they are going to give you formulas. They can select, in this case here, for example, out of those many ratios, they're talking about liquidity ratio, they're talking about, ladies and gentlemen, there leverage ratios, activity ratios, market-based ratios like the PE ratio. They'll give you formulas that you shall use. They'll give you formulas you shall use to be able to calculate that probability of failure, which could be like a Z-score, So the only thing you're required to know, or rather to do, is to have confidence. Just like, for example, before they gave us a question of Springate, we simply used to do what here to describe it. And then they gave us a question, then from there we were able to, and so many students got that question correctly. So it's about, in this case here, just knowing that Farmer model is also a quantitative, is a quantitative model, which in this case here takes cognizance of various types of ratios. And those formulas of getting the ratios will always be given to you in an exam. So then if you allow me, ladies and gentlemen, because there is nothing really there to talk about, I will straight away go to another model, which is also a discursive model, what they are calling the Argentines A-score model. So Argentines A-score model, what do we have here? Quite a nice model. Argentines A-score model, quite a nice model. It's mostly used in qualitative, measuring qualitative, or rather bankruptcy qualitatively, without using numbers. So we are discussing here, the Argenti A score model is a corporate failure model, all right? The Argenti A score model is a corporate failure prediction model developed by Peter Argenti in the early 1970s. The model is designed to assess the financial health of a company and predict the likelihood of corporate failure or financial distress. It relies on a set of financial ratios and qualitative factors to make predictions. Actually, in most cases, it looks at qualitative. It measures bankruptcy using qualitative factors. The key components of the Argenti's A score model: number one, we have the financial ratios. Like other corporate failure prediction models, the Argenti A score model incorporates various financial ratios. These ratios are divided into three main categories. We have the profitability, liquidity, and leverage. The one that I'm so much concerned about is the Argenti's A score model of predicting corporate failure that uses the qualitative factors. We are told, in addition to financial ratios, the Argenti's A score model considers qualitative factors that may impact a company's financial health. These qualitative factors can include management quality, industry dynamics, competitive position, and market conditions. Weighting of the factors. The model assigns weights to both the financial ratios and the qualitative factors. These weights reflect the relative importance of each factor in predicting corporate failure. Scoring system: after calculating the value of the financial ratios and assessing the qualitative factors, the model assigns scores to each component. These scores are then aggregated to produce an overall A score for the company. The threshold for failure. A specific threshold score is used to determine whether a company is likely to fail or experience financial distress. If a company's A score falls below this threshold, it is considered at risk of what year? Failure. Risk of failure. Now, ladies and gentlemen, please listen and listen to me very well. When we talk of Argenti, and this is very popular in your exam, Argenti is a A-score model. Argenti is a A-score model. What you're supposed to know, amongst all the models of predicting corporate failure, Argenti is a A-score. Amongst all those models of predicting corporate failure, this is the only model that looks at the qualitative factors. Qualitative factors. Remember, qualitative factors are unquantifiable, but very important. Qualitative factors are who? Are unquantifiable. Qualitative factors are those factors that are unquantifiable. You can't measure them. You can't count them. Remember, we have what we call quantitative factors and the qualitative factors. So here we are saying that Argenti's model, ladies and gentlemen, basically is that model that looks at the qualitative, those factors that you may think are useless, but yet they are very important in a business. They're the ones that can make a business go down. The fact that, for example, Kenya Airways used to make huge profits initially. I mean, nowadays, Kenya Airways is in the loss danger zone simply because there are qualitative factors that they never looked at. Things like, for example, customer satisfaction. It could look small, but this is something that can make our customers, in this case here, fly away from you. And once they start flying away, then they go all with your numbers. All right. So qualitative factors. So under qualitative factors, are we looking at what are we looking at, ladies and gentlemen? For example, we have things like, for example, corporate governance. Corporate governance. We have things like corporate governance. So any company that doesn't have a very effective corporate governance structure will collapse. Remember, under corporate governance, ladies and gentlemen, every company must have a board of directors. So we need a board of directors. If you get a company that is being run by a single man show, then that company is defective. That company is defective. That company will go down, So in this case, your board of directors must be present. And this board of directors is just not taken like that. It must also be structured into what we call committees and subcommittees. Like there is one committee which you should never miss, what we call the audit committee. So then when I come to your company, even without looking at your financials, once I come and realize, ladies and gentlemen, that the company is being run by one man, it's one man, decisions are being, in this case, implemented, then I know that this company does not have any longevity. Very, very important. So under corporate governance, remember that the chairman's role under the CEO's role and the CEO's role should be separated and handled by two individuals. Should be separated and handled by how many individuals? Two individuals. You should never have any individual who in this case is both chairman and the CEO. The chairman's role and the CEO's role should be split and handled by two individuals. So when we talk of chairman, of course, this is the person who is going to lead the board. His role ends at the board level. His role ends at the board level. His role ends at the board level. Him is to ensure that Mr. A, Mrs. X, Miss X, Miss Y, etc. Those guys are able to speak and they are able to come up with what we call board resolutions. After he does that, he hands over that document to the CEO. So the CEO will be implementing the strategic decisions of the board, right? As per the resolutions he has been given. And then he should be able to report back to the board. So the CEO is the one who is on the ground, who is running this company on a day-to-day basis. In Kenya here we have things, in this case here, upside down. You'll hear, for example, the chairman of IBC making so many, even having an office at IBC. Things that don't operate like that outside there. Outside there, for example, in these developed nations, it is the CEO who has got a say. Is a CEO who happens to be who happens to be spokesperson of any company, or rather, they can delegate that to another full-time staff. But the moment we get, for example, like unbearing chairman, somebody who has an office in the organization, all right, who is trying to control like what the CEO is doing, such organizations will always get themselves in the brink. They are brinking towards who? Corporate failure. They are brinking towards corporate failure. So very, very important. So under corporate governance, we are looking at these structures here. We're looking at these structures here, corporate governance. Remember, every company needs an external auditor. Every company needs an external who? Needs an external auditor. It's a form of part of corporate governance. Ladies and gentlemen, remember, under corporate governance, how we are directing this company, we need budgets. If you are operating a company, in this case here, without a budget, you're not making any comparisons between the budget and your actuals to get variance and then try to appraise your performance, then, ladies and gentlemen, we shall not be doing very well. Remember, I'm not coming to look at numbers. I'll only come here because it's a Gentist qualitative model. I'll come, ladies and gentlemen, and ask, do you guys have budgets? Yes, I give a score. Yes or no, I give a score. If you have budgets, are there times you compare the budget versus the actuals to calculate variances? Yes or no, I give a score. I give a score like that. I give a score. Mine is to score. Mine is to give scores like that. Or rather, all right, ladies and gentlemen, apart from budgeting, we also expect, in terms of internal control, or rather in terms of corporate governance, we also expect what we call internal control systems to be there. Internal control systems to be there. If they're not there, then automatically, remember, every day, I read this statement somewhere there and it really made me very happy. That in Kenya here, over 70% of Kenyans go to their workplaces every morning with an intention of stealing. Look at that statistic, over 70%. That even in this group, there must be somebody, they are here physically, but their minds are outside there thinking of like, how can I steal today? If it's a policeman, there must be somebody, I'm so sure. There must be somebody who has even put a target for himself. And we can't blame you. It is a system that we found ourselves in. It is a system that we found ourselves in. All right? So then, if that is the case, Abraham, and then you happen in this case here not to put enough internal control systems, what do you think will happen to this company? Corporate failure. Remember, internal control systems are those systems that we put in place. Those systems that we put in place. If this is the company, we put some kind of an umbrella to ensure, ladies and gentlemen, that this organization is not rained on, to ensure that this organization is not rained on. The organization is not rained on. So that as this rainfall coming here, the umbrella should be able to protect these companies, of course, financial statements from being rained on, because the moment those financial statements are rained on, then we have the creatives now, like yourselves, the accountants, coming to do what we call creative account, because now numbers can't be seen very well. The financial statements in this case here are deep inside the water. Now they can change things, and when they change things there, they do what we call window dressing. For sure, theft will occur. So trust you, ladies and gentlemen, if you do not have internal control systems in your company, then automatically it's as good as you not having a company. It's as good as you having hit a Waterloo. Having, in this case here, hit what about bankruptcy. So even you as accountants, ladies and gentlemen, one of those things you expect you to do for purposes of looking at future generations to preserve the companies and countries' wealth is to ensure that every other day you're discussing with your bosses on how do you strengthen the internal control systems. And if you remember internal control systems, objectives, I'm so sure this is something you do. Objectives of internal control systems, we normally talk of a stop. You stop all thieves. A stop. A stop. If you remember, I don't want to go into this. A stop, A stands for what here? That if you've got strong internal control systems, then we should be able to get accurate reports. We should have, in this case here, the company's assets being what here safeguarded. If you go to a company and ask for a report, as an auditor, for example, and then that report doesn't come immediately, doesn't come in good time, no, straight away, in accordance to Argentine's model, give them a very, very low score, because that company will fail. That company doesn't have internal control systems which are strong. So in this case here, we have this T stands for what here, timely. There must be order. There must be order at the workplace. There must be order at the workplace if internal control systems are what here are strong. When I come to your company, qualitatively, I'll be able to tell you straight away that this company is going to fail. Strong companies like where I work, these multinationals, they are very strong in terms of how they run their business, orderly, efficient ways of running the business. So if it is filing, like I was, one day I took some documents, in this case here to, is it Art Cafe? I think it was Art Cafe, I'm forgetting this. Art Cafe, right? And then I'd stapled some documents in what they told me was a funny way. Then they have got, even stapling, you don't just wake up and just staple the way you want. There is a lot of order in businesses that are able to stand as giants in the global market. These small firms, and that is why you realize, ladies and gentlemen, when you look at, for example, the big four, versus in this case here, for example, we have here Moffat and the company. Of course, Moffat will be opening an audit firm. One of the things that will make Moffat company not compete with PwC, why we'll only be talking of the big four, why can't we have, some of us locals here, rising up to the occasion and becoming among the big four, all right? It's because of simple things like this. So you get, for example, like when Moffat is in his office, Moffat stands up from his chair, he pushes his chair the way he wants. Like in our place, there is no way you can just push your chair the way you want. You stand up, you return the chair back to the position because everything is normally aligned. You can't, for example, finish taking your cup of, or rather tea, and then you leave, in this case here, your cup of tea there. Who will do that thing for you? Who will do that wash up for you? All right. You take things, in this case here, if it's dustbin, if it's a shredding of papers, there must be order. So when I come, if you ever hired me to come and look at the risk of a corporate failure, there are those things that I'll be able to look at, and I tell you, hey, here things are not working. I can see a lot of defects here. I can see a lot of defects. You don't have this and this. You don't have this and this. Everything is disorganized. All right? Disorganized. So, and in terms of order, also how your employees run the calendar. It's very, very important. You'll get somebody who clears their CPA, but ask them to even just have like an Outlook calendar, where they simply say, for example, Outlook calendar, where they say, for example, today, like myself, I know what I'll be doing at exactly 9. I report on my job at 9. From 9, I'll do this. Already I have my stuff, in this case of the calendar. I did this yesterday. So when I go to the office, already everything in this, because of the order. If you don't have that, actually what I can never do even myself, like the accountants we have around here, if you don't know how to use Excel, you don't know how to use Microsoft Outlook, I cannot give you a job because I know I'm getting myself into what year? Into trouble. Because of people, we always forget many, many, many things. So order has to be there. Order has to be there. And then, of course, we have this P. We are looking at what we call prevention of what year? Frauds and errors. Frauds and errors. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this is really very, very important. All right. So Agentis A score, we are looking at what we call the qualitative factors. Those factors that are unquantifiable, but yet they are what here? They are very, very important. Ladies and gentlemen, if, for example, I come today, you have hired me as your consultant to come and measure the risk of your firm, in this case here, going under. The very first thing I'll do is to visit your washrooms. The hygiene in your washrooms tells so many things. This one will be able to tell me that this firm may not even survive in the next 5 years. Just washrooms. It doesn't matter how much revenues you're making. Are we together? Are we together? Are we together, really? It's like you guys, we are not together. It is like we are not together. Are we together, really? Are we together? You guys understanding what I'm teaching this morning? Are we together? 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 Great. Then you're hearing. Great. Thank you so much. Now, ladies and gentlemen, after these concepts of Agentis, then there are other things that I will straight away look at. We call them mistakes. We call them mistakes. You don't have to classify them. So under mistakes, ladies and gentlemen, once I am through with looking at some of these basic things, then now I'll start looking at the bigger picture. So the bigger picture, things like, for example, what we call the PESTEL. PESTEL. I hope you know what PESTEL stands for. You'll be able to study this in leadership and management. For example, how does politics affect us? Politics, yes. You can now see, like now this guy who used to be so big in the sugar industry, political changes, all right? This guy now, I believe, is a nobody. Chances are, as he was told that there are 3 things, of course, they will not take him to heaven, but chances are Indians, whenever they're scared like that, they'll go back to their country, all right? Of course, now his company's future is quite uncertain. We are looking at corporate failure here. How does the economy, in this case here, affect the economy? We have what we call social. Like right now, I really sympathize with very many physical colleges because now the social demographics are like that. Students are now going online. And I was speaking to some friend of mine, close friend of mine, who was my classmate, who also runs a college in this Nairobi town. I told him, if you're not careful, right? If you don't set up strong online section, I mean, this youth, these guys are moving online a big way. You'll be left in this big city with nothing. You'll not even be able to feed your kids. You go ahead and do what here? Go ahead and set up these online classes. So the social, the demographics here, all right? Like now, an aging population, how will it affect your business? Will you be able to get, for example, in this case here, people to work for you in the next 20, 30 years? All right. All right. So you're looking at environmental issues. We are looking at legal issues. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll be able to look at these. Of course, as I do this, I have to triangulate it with what we call the SWOT statements. Strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. If you don't have opportunities, then I'll be able to know straight away that this firm does not have longevity. Threats. All right. Now, ladies and gentlemen, from there, I will go straight away to what we call management mistakes. So under management mistakes, I will look at a few things here and there, like which one here. For example, I will look at what we call overtrading. Overtrading. I'm so sure most of you here are very, very young. I'm so sure here there must be somebody who never met Akamba. When Akamba was real, when Akamba used to be a big thing, when they used to move around the entire East Africa, right? It used to be a big company. All right. Let me bring this thing home by giving you a closer example. Nakumat. Nakumat. There is a time, Nakumat, they even used to have a very good slogan that if you need it, we've got it. If you need it, we've got. Those guys were huge. But all of a sudden, in a very short span of time, these guys' growth rate became like, I can't remember the name of that particular shrub, which in this case here, once it comes up in your farm, you'll get it like, scattered all over. So it started growing at some astronomical rate. Anytime they could see any mall, even if the mall was just a rickety-ass, useless thing, those guys could go there and open a branch of Nakumat, and they were taking that particular mall as the anchor tenant. Anchor tenant is the one who takes like the first ground floor, and it takes substantially like the whole of it, like 80% of it. All right. And you know, you and I, of course, appreciate the fact that the rent over some of these malls, they are really exaggerated. They're very high. They're like 10 times. All right. So in this case, these guys started overtrading. Overtrading is a dangerous thing. It's a very dangerous thing. As an expert of measuring corporate failure, when I see a firm in this case here doing, like I was even speaking to a friend of mine also who is running some real properties, real estate, the property. This guy is so happy that right now he has got lands all over this country. He's even going to America. So I was telling him, as much as you are really very good in advertising etc., but overtrading is dangerous. Should you get in this case here just one shock, you'll not be able to have enough absorbers. Because at the end of the day, when you are overtrading, then automatically you are riding to what we call thin capital. Thin capital. This leads to thin capitalization. Thin capitalization, which is very, very risky. So to me, when you invite me, of course, you guys can also invite me at your workplaces to come and measure this kind of risk of you guys failing, say, in the next 10 years. I will not take like these guys have got, so say 20 branches. I will not take these 20 branches to be a strength. I have to do what we call what-if analysis. I have to look at, out of these branches, establishing them, how many of them were you able to match like long-term? You know, these are long-term projects. So in terms of financing, then you should have long-term finances, like debt, loans, bonds, etc. Most of this, like now about what they were doing, they were even taking overdrafts. You look at their financial statements, overdrafts, and yet they're doing long-term projects, establishing what a new brand. So they used short-term finance, sources of finance to finance, in this case here, long-term projects, and therefore they found themselves in a situation where they could no longer be able to meet their obligations when they fell due, their short-term obligations, their current liability when they fell due. So a supplier comes, when a supplier comes like this, ladies and gentlemen, he is told that the CEO is not there to sign the check. It is so many, a lot of conversations going on, which does not help productivity of the company to increase. You know, when we become liars in the company, and this is very, very risky, especially as an accountant, when your bosses put you outside there to keep on lying so much, you're wasting company's time. You are a wasted company's resource. resource. We need to have our things being very efficient. And that is why you are told that if there is anything that you should always protect in your company, it is the cash flows. Don't overtrade just for the sake of trying to show might. But you'd want people to think that you are the macho man, you're the superstar now, you are all over. In business, that will kill you. That is automatically going towards what we call corporate corporate failure. Should something happen, perhaps one of the directors dies, anything and you have overtraded, you will not be able to control. You have to look at those ratios and ensure that your liquidity is always good, And of course, never have, like ourselves, in this case, we're introducing courses. I'm quite aware of this concept of overtrading. So what we do, we're always very, very calculative. Like now, this is the first time we're introducing early morning classes for the advanced level. This is like how many years? 2 years we've been running the FM and the FR down there. All right. And then even when we introduce this, you can see right now I'm the one who is teaching them because I'm trying to look at the risk. Before we say this is something viable, bring a teacher, you're paying like 2,000 an hour. So what do? I take the class first of all for pro bono, like that, to just measure whether this thing is going to work or not. Once I realize it's going to work, who doesn't like sleeping? I'll go back and sleep, get the very best teachers. We leave them to run the show. So you must make growth steps, which are very calculated as you measure your liquidity like that. So then we have what we call overtrading. This is very, very dangerous. And of course, we have the concept of what here? The concept of gearing, high gearing. We have what we call high gearing. So any company in this case that is highly geared is that company which has got a lot of gearing is debt. Gearing is debt. I don't know why these finance people took gear to be a very good symbol of what year debt. Like when you're driving a lorry, big lorry, when you engage the gear, right? Things become tough. So any company which is highly geared, of course, in this case here is at the precipice of doing what here? It's a risky venture. Debt is good, but debt, as I told you in some class, it's a risky venture. If you're not careful, you can easily get what? You can easily get yourself into problems. So like ourselves at RCM, we try to be a self-financed company, a self-funding company. Company in this case that basically runs on what here? Students' fees, etc. We don't like borrowing, but at a personal level, I borrow a lot. I believe in borrowing. I'm so sure, God forbid, if it was to die today from Wasibu Sacco, from this bank that I borrowed, I'm so sure guys will come and there'll be two types of mourners. Others genuine, my family mourning, my students can easily mourn. And then now we have other guys coming and saying, kwanza ile ina insurance. I believe in borrowing. Sababu ukiboro, one thing I realized with the borrowing, the times I used to do without borrowing, unakuwa lazy sana. Kama una deni, kama niko sure, kama singekuwa na madeni kama 30 million or even thereabout, singekuwa naamka saa hizi. Unakaanga hivi. Kutaka life kuchanue vizuri, una make sure umekuwa na deni, lakini pesa ya deni si pesa unaanza. Rafiki yangu mmoja aliniambia ati aliboro kitu kama 3 million something, 200 and something like that. So yeye anasema ati 200 hii ya juu hii. Ati sasa ati ni branches. And you know branches, of course, when you want to harvest a tree, branches are not very nice. First of all, you start by cutting. So ati kwanza mwalimu kabla tuweze kutumia the stem, ati kwanza to harvest the branch kwanza, tukula kule. Loan haitaki hivyo. Loan nataka unakimbiza. Like what I did, I went and bought a very big, huge chunk of land at Isinya, 15 acres. Very cheap those days. Right now, 1 acre is about 3.5, 4 million Kenya shillings like that. Near Fred's ranch. That's how you do things. You do things like that. Go and dump this money somewhere. But again, as you dump, don't just go and dump money without having also a plan. For land, you must always think like this thing. Do I want to sell? When you want to sell, you'll not be able to sell. What do I do with this thing? Do I think about, for example, like now I'm trying to move around. And for example, like now I can see this, is it skate. So I can take this kind of skating experience to that kind of a place. right? Build something very nice, etc., etc. Then I can have people go. So, all right, do I do like an international school there? You must always have a plan like that. So don't go borrowing, thinking that you really, no. It's a mistake. It's a mistake if you don't have a plan. Over trading, over gearing is also what, yeah, an issue. It's also an issue. It's also an issue. So what have we said about Argenti? Argenti basically told us, ladies and gentlemen, that we have to be quite careful with these small things which are qualitative in nature. So you quote them like corporate governance. We have these things of what here over trading. We have these things of what here somebody over gearing, etc., etc., etc. I'm so sure that one, now you'll be able to. Great. Tuko wengi. Asante sana Abraham. Yeah. Inafaa tukuwe na madeni. Tukuwe na madeni. Thank you so much. Lakini madeni natumia vizuri. Like most women, they are very good in terms of planning their loans. Pata mama na mess loan yake ni mmoja mang'aa. Lakini wengi kabisa wanajua kupanga loans. Wanaume ndio kidogo, unapata loan kidogo, shetani kidogo. Sio kupenda kwetu. Shetani kidogo anakutembelea. Marafiki anaanza kuambia sasa tuende, ati sasa leo tunakunywa ati pombe ya 18 years and above. Kijana, tutakuwa maskini, vile umaskini ni mbaya. We shall overcome. Now, ladies and gentlemen, if you look at your course outline, then that takes me to what we call portfolio reconstruction. Portfolio reconstruction. So portfolio, first of all, I would want you to know the meaning of the word portfolio. I'm still under that chapter of reconstruction, reorganization, restructuring. I'm still there. So it will be very important for you to know that a portfolio is a combination. Is a combination of who? A combination of investments. Is a combination of investments. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, we form a portfolio for purposes of reducing risk. For purposes of reducing risk. For purpose of reducing risk. If you remember very well, they used to tell us that don't put all your eggs in one basket. Never do this. Because as you're doing this, putting all your eggs in one basket, should you stumble on some stone as you're walking, as you're doing catwalking, going to the market, and then you stumble on some stone, then automatically you fall down, you lose all your eggs. It's important that these eggs you take, in this case here, egg, unaweka kwa kikapu moja, unaweka ingine kwa kapu ingine, una spread the risk like that. And I gave you an example of a friend of mine who retired from Kenya Airways. In those old days, this guy was given about 15 million, actually more than 15 million. This guy went and dumped all this money in some place along Thika Road, Clay City, called Clay City, yes. So akaweka namna hii, bahati mbaya ilikuwa pale karibu na Tumutomuto, riparian land. After ameweka tena pesa yote, atakaomba ingine kando. Uzeeni, ingine tunachukua ya mama kidogo, namwambia tuweke ya apartment hapa ni mzuri, kuna USIU, anafuta toka huko atakuja, hapa ni pazuri. Kidogo riparian land, wakati ile wa Sonko wakakuja na kale Kasani kakaangusha nyumba yote chini. Hiyo mzee akasuffer from this disease, is it called Parkinson's. Hii disease unapata mtu anatetemeka tu ovyo ovyo, hata bila anatetemeka, hata nyama inaanza kutetemeka namna hii peke yake. Parkinson's disease, paka wa leo he has never recovered. What was his biggest mistake? Putting all his eggs in one basket. If he was a bright man, angefanya portfolio. Angechukua, I wish atangekuwa yeye. Hii pesa mimi siwezi kimbilia apartment. Landlord, whatever property, they are good, but they should never be your primary way of making cash. It's never. Equity landlord, unapata kama siku ile liona mwingine anakimbizana na tenant. So kuja kukimbizana na tenant ndio physically running after a tenant. Is that what you want to call passive income? That's more than active. Ukipatia agent pia ni wale, it's more than active. I'm not saying that's bad, especially if it's in a very good location. You can make some money out of it, but I'm so sure you guys know that there are some landlords who are really, really crying. So then we need to know how to form what we call a portfolio. So how do we form a portfolio? Just subdivide this money. some of this money, please, my students, always buy government bonds. Like if you are here and you don't have any government bonds, you are not doing very well. To buy a government bond, you need just a minimum of 50,000. You buy a government bond. You keep on buying them like that. All right. But remember, they start now making sense. This government bond starts making sense. Once you start rolling over something like 10 million in government bonds, then you are a rich man. Because like right now, we have these infrastructure bonds, which have a return of 16% free of tax. Free of tax. So if it is 10% free of tax, it means every year you will be getting 1.6 million. Every year you'll be getting 1.6 million. Meaning that, they pay you semi-annually, half. So 800,000 in June, 800,000 in December. Ukiwa umeretire 55, 60 years, ukipata pesa kama hiyo every year, June is 800,000, 800,000 December. Hakuna hospitali huwezi ukaenda. No. Na hiyo ni free, hiyo ni not free but passive. 100%. That's passive income. Na haina tax. Wewe kazi ni kungoja unapokea. Lakini kumbuka unaenda not for the normal bonds, unaenda for the infrastructure bond 20 year na 20 years ikiisha, kama uko live usichukue pesa na trust you me, 10 million itakupatia nyumba kiasi gani? Apartment maybe itajenga tu ground floor, na kama ni ground floor, ukienda sana ile pesa ambayo utapata per month, ukienda sana ground floor, ikienda sana 40-50,000, ikienda sana hii 50,000 ukifanya na 12 months, it means rental income there will be 600,000 a whole year. 600,000 a whole year. Na hiyo ni wakati iko 100% occupied. Some of these things utapata problem. Unapata mwingine, imagine, mimi naonanga mambo mengi sana. Sababu mimi nakaa na wazee. Unapata mwingine umeenda kumchokoza kidogo na atakumshtua, atunamwekea kifuli. Yeye anakupeleka kwa chief, anaanza na chief, yuko anapenda chief. Kwa chief anasema ulimfungia akiwa ndani, straight away unapelekwa namna gani? Kwamba umeweka mtu jela na una right aweka mtu jela kwa hii dunia. Inakuwa international disaster. So unakuwa na kesi, wakati kesi inaendelea, kama ni rent tribunal, haulipwi, heri hii. Lakini sisemi pia uende uweke government bond zote. Unaweza ukaweka government bond zote, pesa zote, alafu hustle government. I don't have any hatred towards hustle government. Wasifike mahali walemewe. So it's always good you do what here, you diversify. Weka 5 million government bond, weka another 5 million, for example, kwa government, not government, but like shares, weka some other 5 million kwingi. Na ingine jameni, wakati umezeeka, unajua wakati umezeeka kama saa mimi am social, sina enough time na family. My kids must be wondering, mzee, nini mbana. So wakati nina retire, just take like 10% of this money, 1.5 million, 10%. In this case, you try to do what you to please now the family. Wapeleke hata Hawaii, wapeleke Mauritius, wapeleke wapi. You'll be surprised all this can be lost, but these experiences will always be remembered. Great. So portfolio reconstruction is a very nice topic. But now remember here, we are not constructing. There is a whole topic called portfolio. Here we are looking at things are not working out. After coming, in this case here, we have formed a portfolio. After forming a portfolio like this, now things are not working out. How do we reconstruct? How do we remove this money here? We take it. So portfolio reconstruction is an important area for you guys. So portfolio reconstruction, also known as corporate restructuring or asset unbundling. To bundle is to put together. To unbundle is to separate. When things are not working out, you separate. Involves various strategies for reshaping a company's portfolio of business or assets. These strategies can help improve a company's financial performance. Focus on core strengths because you're going to sell some of those unperforming. Focus on core strengths and enhance shareholder value. Here are some of the ways which a firm can unbundle or restructure its portfolio. The first one is to divest. Ladies and gentlemen, remember we have investing. When you invest, you're putting your money into projects. You're putting money into your businesses. When you divest, now you harvest. You're basically getting your money out of your investment. So divestment is the opposite of investment. If I buy shares of Safaricom, I'm investing. If I sell the same shares, I'm divesting. I'm getting money out of Safaricom, which I can take elsewhere, of course. So you're told here, divestment. Divestment involves selling off a portion of a company's assets or business units that are considered non-core or underperforming. This strategy helps the company raise capital and reduce its exposure to certain industries or what year or market. So on a divestment, ladies and gentlemen, you look at, for example, you look at a company, Safaricom. You can unbundle it. When you unbundle it, so you'll be able to have, for example, Safaricom M-Pesa, Safaricom Communications, Safaricom Data. You can decide and say, hey, data is not our core. Just giving an example. I know data is core to Safaricom. Data is non-core. And if it's non-core, let's just dispose it. We divest, we realize money from them. And then this money will help us, ladies and gentlemen, by pushing up, for example, assets in some of these other core areas that we have. Divestment, very important. I've seen people, and this is very, very unfortunate, very, very unfortunate. You know, most people, and how I wish financial literacy can be part of our curriculum. Actually, even from primary school, it can be from primary schools, because so many guys are illiterate. They have MBAs, but in terms of financial literacy, people are not literate, I'm telling you. We are not literate. We miss on so many things. You'll get, for example, somebody, you're taking a loan. You are taking a loan. Like myself, I remember during COVID, I almost went under 100%. 100% with the main loans that I have. That's the risk. That's now when risk, in this case here, I saw risk live with my eyes. All right. So COVID has come. We used to have so many students at Standard Bank. We used to get a lot of money, like 20 million shillings, like 20 million shillings a term. So I never used, for so long, many years that I've run colleges, I've never lacked. So I remember that is the time I'd also stopped working somewhere. I've also been having multinational jobs throughout myself. I've been very lucky. So I stopped because the college had really picked. The college had really, really picked. And then now we had COVID. Pop. Kimchezo tu, munasikia namna gani? Ati kuna kaugonjwa kamekuja. Pap, shule funga. Landlord uko ana demand. Rent of 800,000 what year? A month. Maloans ndizo easy. Uzuri Equity Bank, and that is why somebody can never convince me to. Only that at times we see from them. That's why we don't bank with them as a school. Because at times we hear things, kwamba pesa imepotea, na hii pesa ni ya wanafunzi, sisitaka pesa ipotea. That's why we go to Stanbic or Standard Chartered Bank, etc. But otherwise, my personal account is with Equity Bank. So Equity Bank, they are a listening partner. So I went and structured with them, nikawambia namna hii, shule Standard Bank nikafunga yote that time, 100%. All right? Because you must, ladies and gentlemen, when you are financially literate, you must be able to make calculated steps. I've seen people, once washapata barua ya auctioneer, yamna kama ni mchezo. Because auctioneer atakuja kuambie 3 months. And yet this person akona so many other assets. If you have got so many other assets, na umeona hapa kuna warning, na umeona kuna mbele nyuma. Umeona yenyewe kitu hata auctioneer bila ameniambia, hii 3 months ama hata nimenegotiate na hata 6 months, sisi nikapata pesa. What should I start doing today? I should start looking at how do I dispose some other asset, and then I do what I pay these guys. Otherwise, I will lose, in this case here, a core property. I have to look for something that I have to realize. How I will be able to divest something, remove my money by disposing that asset, and then I put this. So we have to be financially literate. Naitaki ukue mwoga. Rojeto kiambu auctioneer wanakuja. Don't fear. Face them. These are people. Discuss with them. Wengine hapo wakisikia ni auctioneer, hata achukui simu yake. So by the time the law is already catching up with them because of what your financial illiteracy. Financial illiteracy. Napata jamaa anapigiwa simu hata kuna loan ndogo ndogo. Kina Tala. Wanampigia simu jamaa lazima masimu on the process lose clients. How? You just be confident. You just pick the phone, tell them, hi, my name is so-and-so. You're looking for me, no problem. I know I have your money, but please give me time. They feel happy. You keep on buying time like that. That's what we call financial literacy. We shall overcome. All right. So that is what we call the investment. Then we go to what we call the demerger. So demerger is the opposite of merging. So again, here you're breaking down a merged entity. A demerger, also known as a corporate split-up, involves separating a company into two or more independent entities. Each entity operates as a standalone business, and the shareholder of the parent company typically receives shares in the new entity. So gentlemen, listen and listen to me very well. If, for example, you look at this company called NCBA. NCBA was as a result of a merger between CBA and the NIC. All right. So the two came together to give us what we call NCBA. Now, ladies and gentlemen, it's very possible. It's never easy to run a very, very big company. We call them behemoths. Behemoths. It's not very easy to run a very big company. So you may come as big as you are, you realize, hey, what is happening now here? We are not able to move forward. This donkey has become so heavy on our shoulders. So what do? Let's separate. Let's separate. So in this case here, they go back to their original companies. So when they go back to the original companies, we call this one a demerger. Why do we demerge? We go for a demerger so that you can now have what we call leaner operations. So should we realize that the merger has taken us straight away to the blink of bankruptcy? We are at the verge, almost going down. Instead of going down there, ladies and gentlemen, what do? We would rather split, just like marriage. Just like marriage. You should never laugh when you see couples separating. Instead of you really just going down the cliff, if you're seeing things are not working, you're always better off in this case, you're doing what? You're just amicably, you agree, without many side shows, which will affect kids. You agree. Of course, I'm quite a big supporter of marriage, but I know there are situations where they don't work. So in this case here, what do? You go for a demerger. But please make it what year, but short of what year, any shows. Just agree. You're adults, you agree like that. And then you can now have everybody concentrating. You know, we talk of synergy. In this case here, 1 + 1, when you're merging, 1 + 1 should be equal to 3, not 2. But what if, for example, we take 1, we add plus another 1, but what we are seeing ahead of us is what? Is 0. Should we just stick here? No. We shall go for what we call a demerger. We go for what we call a demerger. Then we have a spin-off. A spin-off is similar to a demerger. A spin-off involves creating a new independent company from a division or a subsidiary of the parent company. Shareholders of the parent company receive shares in the newly spun-off entity. Ladies and gentlemen, please listen and listen to me very well. This is very important to me because we are already doing some kind of advisory to Safaricom, the company that I'm working currently. You see, already, if you're not keen, from Safaricom, now we have, in this case here, a new subsidiary of Safaricom called Safaricom what here? M-Pesa. Safaricom M-Pesa. All right. So in this case here, when we talk of a spin-off is basically a newly created company from a parent company. So in this case here, a spin-off. We create a new company, from the parent, and the shares of the new of the new company, the shares of the new company will be held. Will be held by who? By who? By the parent company. By the parent company. Now listen. So we have here Safaricom M-Pesa. So the parent company, in this case here, is still the one that will have the shares of this new company called what here? Safaricom M-Pesa. So basically the two companies are connected. They have an umbilical cord connecting them. So basically, the shareholders of this company will be these same shareholders. So basically, what we have is something that is a spin. If you ever, I don't know whether you guys normally have those steel DJs, those DJs who used to have like a jockey moving around and then they used to spin, something like that. So basically, those shares revolve around the same shareholders. So you're not selling any shares to outsiders. So this thing is moving around ourselves. It's a spin-off. It's a spin-off. You can imagine if Safaricom was to have Safaricom M-Pesa and then they sell shares to third parties. Who would want to be left with Safaricom alone? Safaricom, if you're left with Safaricom without Safaricom M-Pesa, without M-Pesa, then automatically you're left with nothing but a shell. So what I would want you to see here, whenever they talk of a spin-off, and this is very popular in your exams, spin-off, we create a new company, but have the shares of that company held by the same who? Shareholders. Same shareholders, that is the parent company, investor. So we have liquidation. Of course, when things are not working out very well, we liquidate. So this is very similar to what we call divestment. Liquidation is a process of selling off all of a company's assets and distributing the proceeds to creditors and the shareholders. This is usually done when the company is insolvent or when there is no viable ongoing business. So under liquidation, tunaweka mkono juu, tunasema hey, tafadhalini, chukueni vitu yote. Tupeni pesa kidogo, sisi tutapata, tulipe kwanza creditors, ikibaki kidogo, tulipe shareholders, na hiyo kitu ikuwe liquid. Yani ikuwe maji, teremuke, yende, Tana River. Kuisha maneno namna hiyo, inakuwa liquid namna hiyo. It's also a way of, ladies and gentlemen, solving issues. Companies are supposed to give us money. They're not supposed to be sources of misery. They're not supposed to be sources of misery. Companies are supposed to give us money. They're supposed to give us money. If you guys are not giving you money, please go ahead and do what you sell. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we have in this case here what we call sell-offs. I love sell-offs. I love sell-offs because I've also been involved in this kind of arrangement, sell-offs. So under sell-offs, what will happen under sell-offs if we have Safaricom here, this Safaricom? We are going to create a new entity that we shall call M-Pesa. So this new entity, which we call M-Pesa, it can only be called a sell-off if, ladies and gentlemen, we sell the entire M-Pesa subsidiary limited to third parties. We create a new company out of a parent company, and then the new company created is sold ostensibly to enable us raise cash, That's a sell-off. I'm reading here. Sell-offs refer to the sale of individual assets, subsidiaries, or business units. This can be a strategic move to generate cash, streamline operations, or exit non-core business. The only thing they forgot to mention here under sell-off is that we are creating a new company, and this new company will be sold to third parties. The new company will be sold to third parties. We are creating a new company from an existing or a parent company, and then the new company will be sold to who? Will be sold to third parties. That's a sell-off. And then, ladies and gentlemen, if you allow me, I will go to, by the way, we have very few minutes, I will go up to 6:30. I'll go up to 6:30. If you allow me, I'll go to equity carve-outs. So before I even read, there is something very important that I know with carve-outs. something very important that I know with carve-outs. So carve-out, normally what happens, we shall form a new company from the original company. And then now what we shall do, carve-out ni kumega. Kwa unajua kumega mkate. Unajua mjua Kiswahili. Unajua Kizungu, lakini Kiswahili ni shida sana kwa watu wengi. Mimi najua Kiswahili sana. So una mega. Sasa hii una mega. Sasa kama ni carve-out, ukishatengeneza M-Pesa, unakujenga hapo una carve-out. Na carve hivi. So una retain hapa more than 50%. So when we have a carve-out, we are going to have a new company. But once we have this new company, we shall not sell the whole of it to third parties. We shall carve out something small for ourselves, and then we sell the balance. We sell, we sell the balance. We sell the balance. We sell the balance. We sell the balance. So on the carve-out, we create a new company, subsidiary from the existing company. But this new company, we shall just sell a portion of it. We shall be left with something. We shall be left with this carve. We shall be left with this carve. And of course, we should be left with the majority stake. We should be left with a majority stake. We should be left with a majority stake. So equity carve-out. In an equity carve-out, a parent company sells a portion of its ownership in a subsidiary through an initial public offering. So the most I like that statement. I'm getting something new there. I'm getting something there. That the parent company sells out a portion of its subsidiary. Sells out a portion of its subsidiary to third parties, leave alone those things of initial public offering. That's just selling to the public, is selling to third parties. Now, ladies and gentlemen, from there we have, if you allow me, what we call strategic alliances. Strategic alliances, these are basically joint ventures. These are basically joint ventures. Strategic alliances, these are basically joint ventures. These basically are joint ventures. By the way, let me ask you guys a question. If I was to give you this handout you read on your own, would have you really understood it very well? If I was to give you this handout, you read it on your own, would have you understood it very well? No. And that is why I always prefer students not reading by themselves. I always get students who take pride like, I did not go to any class in my entire CPA. When those students come for interviews, I'm able to pick them very fast because you cram and then they don't sink in. Of course, you'll pass. They don't sink in very well. But now when you go outside there, you lack exposure. You lack exposure. You would rather pay this money you are paying here, 4,500, and get through a class, basically for purpose of even getting people who have already industry experience. I'm so sure there are words we normally use here, and so many guys have come to thank me. But Mwalimu, I went to an interview and I got that kind of a thing, and I was able to crush it. So it's important to attend classes. It's important to attend classes. Exciting, yeah. Yeah, they help like that. So it's important. So please, if you have got friends who normally read on their own, tell them no. They need to start attending classes. It's important. Now, when we talk of strategic alliances, ladies and gentlemen, I always remember Telecom Kenya. Telecom Kenya is, as a result, is a joint venture. A joint venture between Kenya government, I should write it well, government of Kenya, and then we have in this case here some investor from France. So remember, it's a strategic alliance if you have got 50-50. So this guy has got 50%, government of Kenya has got what here? 50%. So when you have a struggling business, don't die with it. You call some of us, ask us, Mwalimu, we have got this, and I'm going down. I messed, because first of all, you have to know why you're going down. Business is not supposed to go down. If you're careful, if you're for sure, if you know how to use, for example, social media very well, business should never go down. So you must tell us in this case, first of all, where you messed. In most cases where you mess, you start a business and you don't give it enough time. You start a business and then you start buying luxuries like Mercedes-Benz, isn't it? Instead of going for these normal vehicles, Toyota, which when you have issues, you sell. You buy a Toyota at 700,000, you move around with it for 2 years, And then, of course, you'll sell it at about 600,000. Sell when you have issues. The Mercedes will come much later when the business is so stable like that. So then you call us, we partner in terms of what we call strategic OTR. So when we come in as a partner and a strategic alliance, then we shall be able to bring in expertise. We shall be able to bring in expertise. Strategic alliance is very, very important. Otherwise, you shall struggle. You shall struggle as an organization. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are told your strategic alliance involves a partnering with another company to collaborate on specific projects or ventures. This can include joint ventures, research partnerships, or marketing agreements to achieve mutual benefits. So the most important thing is strategic alliances. You're having like a joint venture. You're joining hands to run some venture. But remember, all over, I even don't know who advised Kenya government. All over the world, joint ventures between private investors and the government, they don't work. Like for the time when the government used to have shares in telecom, always telecom used to declare losses, always. Because they know when this investor, because it's the one who is coming to run, when he declares losses here, like 1 million loss, what will happen? They'll be told to do what here to meet the losses, 50%, 50%, just like what you're seeing in Kenya Airways, losses. So every time you declare, so these are the guys who are running. So they create new accounts, they do window dressing. The government in this case keeps on losing money. And that is why government, like today, they asked me regarding Kenya Airways, I'll give it like 2 years. If I'm in government, I'll give it like 2 years. If it doesn't really get into profitability, we dispose the whole of our shareholding there. Otherwise, if it's an alliance which is making us lose blood, make losses, we would rather run away from it. That reminds me that I'd done interview at Kenya Airways. There's a time I almost became the CEO, Kenya Airways, but I thank God I never got. But if I got in, even up to date, these wings to fly, right? The pride of Africa. If we were able, ladies and gentlemen, in this case here to get such positions, I know really what is needed to put that particular airline into profitability. There are so many things. I've widely traveled, so I know. Unajua kuna hata niwaambie moja hii as I go back, kuna ujinga fulani inataka miaka fulani. For example, utaenda kama Kenya Airways, unapata air host ama air hostess akona 52 years. Kweli 52 years unakuwa air hostess kweli? Ni mzuri kweli? Iko mwingine alikuwa ameimba kwa TikTok alifurahisha sana. Akasema ati mimi ni mtoto mchanga. Bora sijafika 55. Mimi bado kitovu yangu ni mbichi. Lakini ukweli 52 years. Air host hapana. Ladies and gentlemen, if you look at, for example, Ethiopia Airline, these guys, they cap it maximum at 23. They cap it maximum at 23. Ukishafika 23, you are taken to back office, or they give you, in this case here, money, you go and do your own things outside there. Why? Because, for example, when you are, for example, of course, you've landed down there with a Boeing 777, you guys are like 600 passengers, and then, of course, now you're getting out of the plane, 600 guys. And then you get those tall ladies of Ethiopian Airline. Those guys are able to smile back to every kid, back to every passenger for even like 1 hour, smiling throughout with very, very good infectious smiles. But you see, they are able to do that because of what is their age. You see, kuna age fulani taka miaka ujinga fulani. Unaona? So for example, somebody who is this age, ukimpatia mshahara ya 250,000 a month, mbona asikacheke hata the whole day? Mbona asikacheke hata the whole day akiwa this age? But somebody who is here, si ati amezeka, bado ni kijana bado, bado ni kijana 52, ni kijana bado, lakini sasa huyu mtu kuna fees hajalipa. Huyu mtu kuna mama anasumbua kwa nyumba, hata maybe aliamka asubuhi mama akapiga eko, atacheka 1 minute kidogo ameweka sad face. Ashaingia ile concept ya mood swings namna hiyo. Na sasa ni maisha. But we shall overcome. So those are some of the things ungeingia pale Kenya Airways, unaangalia, you look at their food, gourmet, look at, KQ gives us a very bad food, and yet their fare is very expensive. It's very expensive, but we'll talk about that later during mentorship. For now, we would always look at what we call strategic alliances as one of the ways of, ladies and gentlemen, as one of the ways of ensuring that we don't get into bankruptcy. We don't get into bankruptcy. We don't get into arthritis imeweza kuingia. Hawezi hata kusema vizuri. Unamtesa, anacheka lakini anaumia na arthritis. That's a nice one. Okay, great. Now, ladies and gentlemen, from there, we have what we call management buyout. Management buyout. So management buyout, these are very, very important. I love this. Management buyout. We don't differentiate management buyout and management buy-in. You are a genius. You are a genius. Management buyout and management buy-in. I like management buy-in because I will never forget where we work, where I work, is where Chris Kirubi used to be there when he was alive, International House. International House. And this guy was huge in terms of what year? Management buy-in, using Centum. So what they used to do is to look for firms that were struggling. They look for firms that were struggling, like Rea Vipingo, struggling because of poor management, right? And then they go and tell those guys, they walk in. So these are basically external managers who will walk into a company and then they buy shares in that company. And then they run the company to profitability. Management buy-in. External managers coming from outside there. They come into RCM and then they take over management because I'm the one who has been messing around perhaps. They take over management and then of course they are bought shares. They give me something small, Kino Mugongo, I go, they run the company to profitability. Centum has been able to do this successfully, although right now since this guy started becoming sick, it's a bit shaky, but we shall overcome. So this as opposed to management buyout. And a management buyout, now we have in this case here, existing managers. A very good example, for example, we have Luvaha. Luvaha Kenyani is the one who teaches for us here, advanced audit and company law. Is our operations manager around here. So perhaps when he's here, he is able to see lots of potential that some of us shareholders, we can't see. So ourselves, instead of then dying with the company, when we realize that now we are almost at the brink of collapsing, we can discuss with Job Kenyani and the other managers. We tell these guys, us now we should go outside there. So they buy us out. So when they talk of management buyout, always remember existing managers buying out the shareholders. They take over management from inside here. Quite confusing, but if you keep on repeating, you'll be able to understand this. So you're saying management buyout. In a management buyout, the existing management team, often with the help of external investors or lenders, purchases the business from the current owners. Existing management buys the business from the current owners. And then we have management buy-in, I'm skipping 9. In an MBI, external management teams, often with the support of investors, acquire a company in which they have no prior ownership or affiliation. They acquire a new company. And a management buy-in, they are walking into a new company. External management who have got a great management experience, they walk into a new company and they take over, and then things start shining. And then we have leveraged buyout. In an LBO, a group of investors, often including private equity firms, acquires a company using a significant amount of borrowed water funds. So ukisikia leveraged buyout. So leverage, they are not telling you whether it's a management buyout or a management buy-in. When we talk of a buyout, of course, we are going for a firm. We're going to buy shares of that firm. But because of the word leverage, debt is involved. So they tell you, for example, leveraged management buyout, because I've seen that, leveraged MBO, always think of these existing managers, they don't have money. If they want to buy RCM, then no problem. Let them get a loan out there. So when it's leveraged management buyout, they get a loan, this existing money, and then they buy us out. And then if it's leverage management by in, these external managers who are coming to buy this new organization, who are coming to buy this new organization that they don't have any affiliations before they buy it, they're coming by borrowing. They're coming by borrowing. Ladies and gentlemen, it has been a pleasure hosting you this morning. It has been quite a nice journey. At times, days like this, I have board meetings, so I have to prepare for them a little bit here and there. So I beg to disappear. Have a lovely day. Please always put ahead, put in front the best foot forward. That will be very good at the workplace. Always go there smiling. Do your work so you can grow as individuals. Thank you very much. Bye.